Hey guys, it's Drew again. Today I want to do a couple of VRs for a couple of very good friends of mine in the hobby, Hugo and John. Hugo at Signs of the Pastime and John, 3D 80s Kid. So let's check it out. So like I said, I wanted to do a couple of video responses. First is for John, 3D 80s Kid. And what he wanted us to do is he wanted us to talk about our obsessions, the way we collect or what we do in our hobby, the way we look at things and gain or add to our collections. And so with me, it's very similar to John. John, if you watch his videos, he's got his great display cases behind him. He's got his cards in order. And I think it kicked off when he tried to rearrange them and put them in a different order than what he was used to. And he didn't like it. Yeah, it's like a feeling of it doesn't fit. It doesn't make any sense anymore, even though it's the same cards and just in a different order. So he had to put them all back. Well, I'm the same exact way. When I do, arrange things in my room or whatever, it's got to be in some kind of an order that makes sense to me. This dog. Anyway, it has to make sense to me. And so like you look behind me and you see these magazines and there's a reason that they're in that kind of order. If I look around and I show different things, it has to do with my displays. To me, when I collect stuff, it tells a story, and it's a whole collection of stories all put together. And this story becomes my legacy here within this community. And you've heard all this stuff before, but I love to tell the stories. And I guess before I got onto YouTube, I always had these thoughts of, well, if somebody ever comes over and they want to see my stuff, I didn't want to pull out a box and they can flip through it or just a binder and look at it. I wanted them to look at stuff and sort of not really a museum, because I don't feel my stuff is museum quality sort of thing, but just to be able to tell stories without actually having to tell stories. And I remember when my friend Jake came over for the first time, and I sat here in this chair that I'm sitting on now, and literally I was here for, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes, and Jake just walked around the room, didn't say a word, he just looked at everything, and I knew I didn't need to explain anything because Jake's a collector, and he knows these cards better than I do probably. But he just looked around, and he didn't judge and say, oh, this one's off-centered, or this one's out of focus a little bit, or oh, that corner's a little dinged. He was looking at the story that I try to create in the way that I displayed stuff. And that's the way I do that. So whether it's the magazines behind me or this Red Heart, display, when I put this set together, it took me a long time to find the cards that I really wanted and be able to afford them. And then I thought, well, now I got to make a display. See, I put them in color order, all the row of red, all the row of blue, all the row of green. I took my absolute most favorite card in the set, which is the Stam Usual, and I put him in the top center because to me that was the focal point of this whole thing, and that's why red is on top. And then underneath that is the Mickey Mantle, which, not being a Yankees fan, wasn't that big of a deal because this is a mantle. This is a mid 50s beautiful mantle, and I put him right in the center underneath the Mutual. And then my favorite one of the green set was Snyder, and then going left or right, moving outwards, I put them in different order based on how I like these players or what I knew about these players. And that tells a story to me. And so that's a big part of what I collect or how I display it, is just to try to tell that story and share that story. Another thing that I'm obsessed about is once I got here on YouTube and I thought, I don't have these huge cards and stuff, and it was that same trepidation a lot of you guys that do videos may have started out with. And I thought, let's just get on here and chat and talk. But I was worried about how am I going to look and where am I going to sit and all this other kind of stuff. And once I shot my intro video, I realized that there was a picture, and this wall behind me was all changed. But there was a picture that was crooked. And I thought, well, I'm going to shoot another video. So I shot my second video, but I straightened that picture. And from that, I thought, you know what? I want to do something different. I want to rearrange something. So when I did my third and then fourth and then fifth, I always put something different in this background behind me than the previous video, just to kind of see. Well, now I'm obsessed with that. Like, what do I have that's different? What can I put up that's a display thing that's different every single video? And if you go back and pick any one of my videos and just look at any one of them, something will be different back here. And sometimes it's a shout out to somebody secretly. Sometimes it's a reference to something else. Sometimes it's just, well, this is cool and I'll stick it here. And I've had comments here and there about it, but that's something that's important to me that nobody's ever going to go back and look. There's no catalog of all the different backgrounds that Drew did in his videos. And but those are a couple of the things that I'm obsessed about. It's about display and the way I show things off. But that speaking of that, I want to go to Hugo and Hugo's Signs of the Pastime. And Hugo, speaking of the whole, a shout out to somebody or a little secret message. There's only one person watching this video right now that knows exactly why I have these right here. So I'm going to share that, and that is for Hugo. So if you've never seen Hugo, if you've never watched his channel, please put a link down below. Go check out his channel. He tells me, oh, you're a great storyteller. He is a fantastic storyteller. Goes on location, shows stuff, puts tons of work into research and editing. He doesn't just sit here and blah, blah, blah like I do. And he gets on and he just shows us amazing stuff in these great places. And I love it. And one of the things he really loves is he loves cards or pictures of cards that were taken during spring training, because he lives down in Florida. And so all these cards were taken in spring training, and he loves the ones with trees in the background, which is why I put these trees here. Hugo, that's for you. So it's Christmas season. I thought I'm gonna stick a couple Christmas trees back there and put that in my background for you. So Hugo, what he wanted us to do is he wanted us to go through and just show off some of the favorite things we showed off this year, some of our favorite pickups or whatever. And I don't pick up a whole lot of stuff, but I thought, you know what, I did get a few things. They're not high-end stuff, they're not super expensive, but you know what, they're fun for me, and I really enjoy them, so I wanted to show those off. So the first couple of things is, last summer my wife and I got to go away for a few days, just the two of us, and one of the things we did was we took one of those days and we just went to antique shops and looked around. And I'm always looking for vintage baseball stuff. Well, I live down in the Southeast, and there is not a lot of vintage baseball stuff in antique shops. Every once in a while you'll find some random thing. Well, this summer I found two things that were really cool to me because they were kind of different. I'd never seen either of them before, and I thought, man, I'm going to have those things. So now they're in my collection, and now they're telling part of that story. The first one was, I was looking through a box of magazines and looking for old magazines. I've got these great magazines up here, and I'm always looking for those, but I don't ever find those. But in those box of magazines, I did find this little thing. And all it is it's a little booklet, and I'll show it in a second. And it's from the 60s. I believe it's from 1963. And it's just generic. There's no licensing or anything, but it's called How to Play Baseball. And it's really cool because it was made for little leaguers, little kids, to show little techniques and just aids. And I can imagine that kids really like this stuff. But what was really cool about this was not that it's vintage and not that it's about baseball, but they took a photograph and they put it on the front. And this photograph, of course, is Mickey Mantle. And that is just insane. And there's no mention of Mantle in here. There's no mention of any major league teams. There's no mention of any specific players, but the fact that they had that beautiful color of Mantle in full swing, just a great stride. Look at the catcher just watching that ball. You can imagine it's just flying over the fence somewhere. And I thought, what a cool piece. I mean, that tells a story. That to me, that tells a story about a little kid, trying to learn the game to be like the Mick or whoever their favorite player was back in the day. And I love this. I love this piece, and I was so happy to find it. So that's one piece I want to show off. And then the second one is definitely a unique home art kind of thing, but what it is it's a doorstop. And doorstops, I remember them as a kid, my grandparents' house. Doors, as house would settle, doors would want to stay open or want to stay shut, and they would always swing. And so people would use doorstops, and this one is made out of cast iron. So this is the back of it. I'll show it to you in a second. But I mean, you can see it's heavy. I mean, there's signs of rust and anything, but it's just this baseball thing. And I've actually had it in a couple of videos back here. And it just says baseball. And it's meant to put like in 3D, but obviously it's flat in the back to stop the door. But the colors on it are great. The green and the gold baseball, the players, the fact that they reverse the uniforms with a simple red and blue pattern. I just really love this piece, and it's different. It doesn't mean anything. It's just about baseball. But I don't know how old this is. I don't think it's super old, 100 years or anything. But it's cool. I think it's interesting that the pitcher looks like he's got a wrist halfway up his forearm. Just really neat little details to it, and it's a cool piece. So that's another thing that I love that I picked up. And then a couple of other things that I got this year. One are gifts, and they're representative of gifts. And I've gotten a few different gifts from people both I know, like my wife or my family, but guys on YouTube. And these are the total surprise gifts. So I'm going to show a couple of them, but this is not all that I had gotten. First is I got this card from Don at Don's Field of Dreams, and this is the first stand-ups I've ever had. And we were just talking on the phone, and I mentioned that I don't have one, and one day I'd like to get one, but I didn't know which one. And he went and got this, and I love this. And now this proudly is displayed in the case in order. Of course, John, back to you. You know, all my cases are in order out, by year, but you know the green and the yellow, it just pops in the case, and I love it. And I love the, you know, the huge catcher's glove, and we talked about this in the video that I showed it off, but that's one of my favorite card pickups of the year. I didn't get many, but boy, this is great, and I love looking at it. And you know, it really pops in that tux that I didn't have to pay for because I make my own. And so moving on. And then another one was I got the most generous gift from Jack at Cracker Jack Cards and his dad Greg, and they came into this huge collection of magazines, and that's where almost all the magazines you see behind me came from. But they sent me as a thank you and just as a gift some magazines, and I did a whole, you know, recap of them a while back. But one of the cool things I want to show off again, because I'm a mutual guy, and Don's not the only mutual guy online. He's the only one who talks about it nonstop. But this ad, and this is an ad from the early 50s for Stan Musial with Wheaties, you know, and it talks about, you know, Stan coming in and winning the game, and it's just so cool. I mean, it's just so mid 50s. You know, it's got baseball on it and the colors of it and the comic books of it, and I love it. And of course, this went hand in hand with the cards that are from Wheaties boxes, and I don't have any of those. Someday I'm going to get some. I love those cards. They're not super expensive, but you know, I'd like to pick some up, and I'm sure I will. So that's what I wanted to show off. So John, thank you so much for the opportunity just to talk about a couple things, and Hugo, you too. The last thing I want to end with is a quick shout out. So I want to say thanks to Julian, and hey, how are you? And you know, he just he appreciates my stuff. He likes hearing my stories, and I really hate hearing that. So I wanted to say something publicly to him. So when you leave a comment, if you've made it this far in this long video, just say, hey Julian, what's up? And then you can read the comments and maybe get a couple of them. But check out John, check out Hugo's channel, and until next time, you guys be good.